as you know, I've always been studying my Bible, looking for specific applications. And, the Lord leads, and I started researching, what does the Bible say about anger? And I got all these different verses together and understandings, and realizing that God has anger and we have anger. Anger's not sin, but we can sin out of our anger. And what do you do about it? And why do we get angry? It's all there in the scriptures. So I put this study together, and I got a group of people in our church to meet together, and the sharing that came out of that was really insightful. The closeness we gathered together by revealing things from our own lives that we don't normally tell other people. So we had that. Well, I also knew a guy in the local prison in Freeland, Saginaw Correctional Facility, who was a volunteer in there to head up a class called Emotions Anonymous. Not a religious class. It was a nationwide ministry where prisoners can get together and just share their emotions, and whether it be depression or anger or discouragement or whatever it might be, just because they need other human beings in their life to be able to open with. Well, I knew the guy that did this, and I said, Dave, I just put this class together on anger for our church, and it was really great. Maybe we can do this in your Emotions Anonymous class. He says, yeah, let's do that. So we planned to do it, but when they realized that this was a Bible-based class, we had to get the chaplain involved and the deputy warden, and they said, okay, we'll do it as a pilot. Well, we did this class, and then after maybe, a month or two of meeting like this, the chaplain and assistant deputy warden came into the class, and they said, well, asking the prisoners, how do you like this class? Is there, and one prisoner says, there's only one problem. What's that? We've only got an hour. We need more time. So they gave us an hour and a half. And when we had finished that class, both the deputy warden and the chaplain said, we'd like you to just keep doing this class over and over and over. So we had an open door to do this class. And I'll talk about it in a minute, but that ended up saying, let's look at other issues that the prisoners had. We kept expanding from that. So we did this, and we realized having these loose piece of paper was too chaotic. So we made a booklet, and actually the chaplain's clerk would print it and staple it together, and then we had a booklet. And then as we went further on, and then electronic publishing came out, and I said, well, why don't I just put down everything that I would say and put it in writing. And so it became a book with lots of questions at the end of every chapter that we could talk about. And I need to add one more caveat here. I went in there, first of all, doing the normal way of standing in front of a classroom and lecturing. They'd be all looking at me. I'd be giving all the information. And it wasn't too many weeks of doing that. I had one prisoner who wasn't even a Christian at the time. He said to me after class, he says, do you think you could learn anything from us? And I'll tell you, that was just like the Lord speaking to me. And I realized these men have lives in all kinds of life situations, and I'm not utilizing what they have in their lives. They see things that I've never been involved in. So I would come to class and, let's take anger, for instance. I'd say, well, what's anger? Oh, all of a sudden, hands are going up and opinions all go around, and somebody's saying emotion. I says, oh, okay, what's an emotion? And then you'd have much more, where do emotions come from? Oh, then you got some more conversation. Pretty soon the room became alive. Everybody participated, kind of like when our home church, and it just grew from there. And then after a while, we realized all this conversation we're doing in one big classroom, we ought to break into smaller groups so that everybody has more of an opportunity to share with one another. So we did that, and that kind of meant that we needed a facilitator in each group. So I brought in more and more men with me. Over the years, there's been, at least 50 men have come in, and I've had numerous pastors come in, and it literally changed their ministry because they saw something here they never seen on the outside. Yeah. Numerous pastors. Yeah. So we had these leaders that came from the outside, and a few years later, we realized, why do we have a volunteer doing all the leading? A lot of these men can lead. So then we said, let's pick some men that we think could be leaders, and the prison staff gave us a separate time where we could meet with leaders and build them up to be facilitators in all the small groups. And we'd have like 25 guys that we were discipling to be leaders. Yeah. And it got to a point where we came in as volunteers just to love on these men and become part of the group. They did all the leading. We would put 2 leaders at a table, an experienced one and a newer one. So the experienced leader is discipling the younger, newer leader. Another transition is we would say, well, who could be a leader? Who could be a leader? Finally, we came to a point, if someone said to me, I'd like to be a facilitator, didn't matter whether he thought he was qualified. We'll raise you up. And it worked. Anybody could become a facilitator and lead a group, which is really teaching them how to disciple. Yeah. And he came into the class, and that's what he said. He says, I'm not a Christian, he says, but I really got a lot of anger. Well, we were just in this study, and we were talking about forgiving, and he says, oh, I hate my father. I'll never forgive him. He says, what he did to me and what he did to my mother and me, and he took my heart out and he stomped it on the floor. He says, I hate him and I'll never forgive him. And we were one big circle around the table, and I put my hand on, he sat next to me, I put my hand on his leg, and I says, well, I'll be praying for you, Shawn. And all the other prisoners around the table says, yeah, we'll be praying for you too, Shawn. And I can't remember the exact sequence of how things happened, but he had said to the Lord, he went back. He wasn't a Christian. He went back and said to the Lord, well, if you're for real, I want to hear from my father and my mother. His father and mother were divorced. They hadn't been together in several years. His father was in prison, in another Michigan prison. And he says, and hadn't heard from either one of them in a couple of years. He says, Lord, if you're real, I want to hear from them. He got a letter from both of them that week.
Wow.
God is real.
Yeah.
Well, that opened his faith up. It's like, whoa, So he started progressing, and the sequence, I can't remember the exact sequence, but this all happened in about 6 weeks. He came to class. We always open up in prayer. Does anybody want to open this prayer? And Shawn says, I will. This guy's not even a Christian. And he starts thanking God for coming and speaking to him in his bunk. And what God had said is, I've been waiting for you to come. And, we're hearing this, and we're all like, wow, So he comes another week, and he says, I wrote my dad, and I asked him to forgive me for being such a terrible son. Wow.
Yeah.
Another week goes by, and he says, I heard back from my father. He wrote me a letter asking me to forgive him for being such a terrible dad. And I knew he was crying. We said, how do you know that? He says, the ink was running on the page.
Wow.
And then we're all starting to weep,
Yeah.
And then I think it was a week later, he got baptized. And then he said, my goal is to get out of prison. He had a short sentence, 3 years or something like that. My goal is to get out of prison and go meet up with my dad and restore our relationship. This all happened within 2 months.
Wow.
God is so real. Anger is an emotion, and we were created in the image of God. God has anger. Most people don't realize that. And we have anger because we are created in the image of God. Everybody has anger, no exceptions. The critical thing is how do you handle your anger? It says, in your anger, do not sin. Well, how do you have anger without sin? And if you are prompted to sin, how do you not sin? You need to know your own heart. Anger is different in everybody. The more that we're wounded by someone else, the more that anger comes out of that. And then how do we respond to someone else? Do we respond back in anger and now wound them? How does God deal with it? we clearly angered him. We pursued other gods, and he made him angry. How does he handle his relationship with his anger? And this book is really a big part of this book is understanding who is God. The Old Testament is so necessary to me because it deals with the character of God and how he deals with his people, his chosen people. So that's a big part of that book. It's how to have a righteous anger and not have a sinful anger.
Yeah, and I think you go into a lot of different topics around anger and life situations and dealing with that. But I like the topic is freedom from anger. It isn't anger management.
No.
It's saying, yes, you have anger, but you're not free. Anger doesn't drive you as an individual.